You wouldn't go fishing to catch a bird, and you wouldn't start a podcast without a really good microphone, just like the Shure SM7B right here. Well, this podcast is sponsored by Shure Microphones. Welcome back to the Gear4music podcast. Today, I'm actually in the Gear4music studio for once, and I'm joined by an amazing guest, a guitar virtuoso, someone who plays the guitar so incredibly well. It is Nick Johnston. How you doing, Nick?
I'm good. I almost watched you come face to face with the floor there.
Yeah, but, so this stool just broke and I almost died.
It was very nice. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I've never done a proper in studio a podcast. In fact, I think the only podcasts I've done have been over some horrible Zoom or Skype situation where I guess there's no microphones and just a bunch of people over talking in delayed bad time.
Yeah, you're trying to work out when you should say something. It's nice to do it in person. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's the first time I've done it in this studio because the last couple I've done it like out on location and stuff, talking to a few people around and about. But obviously, like I said, it's so nice to actually have you here. So
it's great, man.
I mean, first of all, let's obviously talk about you. So obviously, you're a guitarist, a songwriter from Canada.
Yes. Yes.
First of all, can you take me through your kind of like journey of how you got to like where you are today? Like, where did that start from?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can. Well, it depends on how deep you want to go. I guess
as deep as
how many layers
share.
We want to peel back here in the Gear4music studio. Well, I come from a very unmusical family.
Okay.
An extraordinarily uncreative family, to be honest. Shout out to the Johnstons. You know, I found out kind of years later after I started playing and didn't have any sort of creative North Star in my family. I found out years later that my grandfather actually played guitar, but that was long after he had passed, and I found a guitar in my grandmother's garage.
Okay.
And I was like, why wasn't I
didn't
alerted?
Tell you about this.
Why wasn't I not alerted to the fact that there was another creative individual? Anyway, going way back. So I was bad at everything growing up. If I'm just really going to be honest with you, I was terrible at
finding it hard to.
I was terrible at everything. I was bad at. As a Canadian, you know, you're sort of born into having to play hockey.
Okay.
And if you skate on your arches, or skate weird or look weird playing sports, you essentially are made fun of relentlessly. Okay. So thankfully I could skate well, but I hated sports.
Okay, yeah. I'm not very good at it.
And I still hate sports.
I'm not very good at ice skating. I've tried. I'm terrible. I'd be, people would make fun of me all the time if it was.
So I played hockey and, did that whole thing. And then I guess roughly at what year had this been? 2000 or so, I had a neighbor that moved in, and I was 13. And I found out he was 14. Now, I'm sure it's similar here, but when I'm 13, 8th grade, 14, 9th grade. So that could be like, that might as well be an ocean apart. He's going through puberty. He's got maybe some acne, a little bit of chest hair. His voice is changing a little bit, I'm sitting there on my front porch. I watched him move in, and I could kind of hear at some point some guitar coming from the basement window. He had his window open. And I got up the courage one day and I walked over and I did an analog text, I guess. I knocked on the front door back when we used to do that shit. And he came to the front door and he was like this big, tall, scary dude. He had real spiky hair. He's kind of into punk music and stuff. And I kind of looked up at him and I said, can I watch you play guitar?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, sure.
So, come on in.
Yeah, exactly. Just dispel
the
the sort of fear immediately. And I watched him play, and then he let me pick the guitar up, and I just said, pick a note, and I just hit the open string, and I moved my finger, and the pitch went up, and I just... So then I begged for a guitar. Can I please have a guitar? And I got into it. It was a red, I guess it would have been sort of a Fiesta red Squire Bullet.
Nice.
I used Squire Bullet, and I had a Fender Frontman 15R, had the reverb. But I remember that amp was weird because it had a bunch of paint stains on it, so it must have been a used amp, unless Fender was doing some strange model at the time. Anyway, so that was my gear for a long time. I also bought a Korg. It was one of those kind of first or second generation Korg tuners we'd plug into.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Oh, those things, the batteries, it drained the batteries in 5 seconds.
Yeah. So
that was my rig. My rig, yeah. And then eventually I bought on a whim. I had about $50 I'd saved up from God knows what, and I bought a a DOD grunge pedal.
Nice.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I think I know.
How old are you, by the way?
I'm 28.
Okay, so I'm 36. So yeah, you probably would be around when that one was still kicking. It was like a pinkish.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, it sure was a pedal.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had that. That was my little corner of my universe for a little while. And then I used to go over to a friend's place and I'd plug into his dad's PA, my grunge pedal directly, and it just sounded horrible. But I loved the sound of guitar and playing with people and loud noises and stuff. So I got really into it really quickly. I don't know, after the first few days, I was glued to it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved even, I loved the whole, still kind of like it, the ritual of, taking the guitar out of the bag, put it in my little stand, I'd uncoil the cable, make sure it was perfect.
Yeah, nice.
Plug in everything. And I was always like, I'm performing,
Yeah.
the whole idea of it. Anyway, so I got real into it. And then just from there, I joke sometimes that, the greatest gift my parents ever gave me was isolation.
Okay, yeah. Just to sit in your room on your own and just
they just kind of let me
as long as you can.
Exactly. Yeah, they just kind of let me do my thing.
Which is nice because I guess that's kind of where you find your love for an instrument like this.
Yeah,
like locking yourself away and really just playing on your own, playing your favorite songs and learning your own songs and learning what you can and can't do on the guitar.
I think so. Yeah. For me, it was more like I was just such a nervous wreck. I was such I had no confidence as a kid. I didn't know, I was going through puberty, which was very confusing, and just like being a teenager, I was very sensitive. Being in high school and not really kind of feeling like I fit anywhere. So it wasn't even so much about like learning how to play the instrument. It was just feeling like learning how to feel like I belonged somewhere.
Yeah, I 100% get that.
Yeah. And there's something really nice about an instrument where it can be you can be in a boat in the middle of the ocean by yourself. It's a solitary pursuit sometimes if you want it to be. And they kind of, my folks and my brothers, I'm sure they have memories of hearing me practice, much to their annoyance. But they just left me alone. Whatever, go do your thing. They saw that I was enjoying it. They saw it was making me happy. So I just kind of leaned into that. And then at some point, I just started trying to do stuff with it.
Yeah.
I had some friends that played. I would work up the courage to play with them. And
so what, just off that
sure,
as well.
Yeah, sure.
So when you started like learning at that early age, like what, because for me, there's a time where I got to around about 15, 16 and I was like, right, this is it. This is what I want to do.
Okay.
Like what point, where did you get to in your life when you're like, this is it now? That's
a great question. I never really had that conversation with myself.
No?
I know. I never thought of it
naturally.
like that. Yeah. I never thought, I didn't know what a musician was because I didn't know that was a job.
Yeah.
I grew up in a real small town. It was a little town called, if you can believe it was called Rockwood.
Nice. That's a guitar place.
A child of Canadian suburbs, my destiny was to play an instrument, I suppose, alone in my room. I didn't know you could be a musician. I thought you had to be a schooled, educated,
like a classically trained.
I thought you had to be. This sounds funny, but I thought you had to be a professional musician to be a musician, which makes it's like the logic was eating itself.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I didn't. First of all, I didn't realize you could do that as a career. I know you can make money off it, but it was just really. It just made me feel good. So I just was like, I'm just going to keep doing this. It makes me feel good. And then I started doing it more. I started doing it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. I started getting a little bit better at it. And then just at some point, I was like, what can I do with this? And then I graduated high school and I wasn't going to go to post-secondary. Didn't really have any money and I didn't have anything I was interested in. I had a lot of friends that went off to business school or, started working at a car dealership or got married, had kids, whatever. I was just kind of sitting at home like, well, I like guitar. So I went out one day and my parents said, don't come home till you get a job because this is ridiculous. You what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. So I begged to get a job teaching at this little store and I started teaching guitar a little bit.
Oh, nice.
And that's what then got me into learning my ABCs, so all my theory and trying to, because you get a student in and he knows just a little bit less than you.
Yeah. So you're like, oh, I could teach you what I know. But then you're like constantly trying to keep up.
It'd be like week to week, I'd have the student come in. He's like, I was working on, trying to build these chords off triads, and I'm sitting in my mind like, I know that term.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the washroom. I'd be like, flip.
So I started using the Mixolydian scale, and you're like,
who's Lydian?
yeah.
I don't know her. But I think at a point it just slowly, it's interesting. I guess I get asked. I was asked last night at the clinic. This young kid was at the show last night. He was 17. He goes, what advice can you give me to be like? How can I be going down this path?
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know what to tell him, because my experience with music, everything has been, there's a certain level of chaos, and there's a certain level where I've left everything to chance.
Yeah.
I'm not great at planning the future.
Yeah.
I'm not good at foreseeing things. I just try to be as prepared as I can.
Yeah.
And I try to feel like I'm getting myself in, I'm trying to feel like the situation I can get into is not going to kill me.
Yeah.
I worry about my health a lot. I have some health issues.
Okay.
So like, is this going to be a good thing, not just for my mental health, but for my physical health, my like all that stuff. And I don't know, even like if I was to start now and to go through the whole thing, I don't even know what the steps are.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be so different, right?
Yeah,
From
exactly.
when, like, however long ago it was. And
that's a cool thing. There's something really, really, really awesome about that. The music industry or just being a musician, it's a lot of times I looked at it as just a giant brick wall.
Yeah.
And I'd see friends and I'd see people that would, they had a way to climb over the wall, or they just would walk around it, or they'd, dig under it. I would stand in front of the wall and just smash my head into it until I was able to get through it.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of been it. I've just tried as many things as possible and just, so there's like a chaos to it.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong way to do anything, really.
Totally,
it's just kind of, you're on your own journey as a musician, as a guitarist, or whatever, and you just kind of have to almost find your own way there.
I think so.
If you can.
I think so. I think there's a really interesting self-discovery. And man, as a sensitive, introverted, I guess, very, very emotional kid, a lot of stuff wasn't appealing about being a musician. I didn't want to tour.
You don't want to stand in front
I didn't
of a
want to
big
play
crowd.
in front of people.
Yeah.
I had no interest in performance, which is interesting because, I suppose there was maybe a definition at one point where that is what you were as a musician. You go and play music for people.
Yeah,
and you're an entertainer. But for me, it was just about feeling good, feeling normal, and finding a way to just block out all the stuff in life that just was terrifying and overwhelming. So it's just been kind of a path of like, okay, I want to get better at the instrument. I want my songwriting, and I want my ear to grow, and I want to feel things. But I also have to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And once I did step, out 1 foot, you can hear I'm Canadian, out. 1 foot in front of the other, I realized, actually, I do like doing that. I do like playing in front of people. I like the thing I enjoy the most about it, I suppose, is when I see someone or I talk to somebody after a performance that feels like they could maybe do it too. Yeah. Because they were scared or they were terrified of it, or their parents told them it wasn't going to be a career for them. Or I like inspiring people. I think that is the most satisfying thing for me is, now you want to do that? Cool. Yeah. And maybe I can help you do it.
Yeah, because you're getting yourself up on that stage. You're playing your songs. You're doing everything. I guess that's how we all start, right? Like you're doing the things that they want to be able to do. They want to be able to play guitar like yourself. They want to be able to perform in front of these people like yourself. And you're inspiring people to go and do that. And I think I was listening to a podcast before with Matt Healy from 1975, and he said a similar thing. He was like, the main thing he wants people to will watch his band and go create a band. He wants them to go out and he wants them to see like, we can do that. Yeah, that's cool. I guess is a kind of similar thing to you saying.
Yeah, I just think it's such a layered. It's such a difficult thing to wrap your head around if you have that need, you want to do it so bad but you don't know where to start. I think it's such a difficult thing, and if you're just able to kind of shed a little bit of light into, maybe you could try this or that, then I'm happy. I've maybe made someone feel like this is something that is not as difficult as maybe their friends told them or their parents told them or historically we've been led to believe. So anybody can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Yeah.
So I mean, saying that, like, when you were that kind of age that things influenced you, what was your influence back then? Like what was an album or a song or an artist that really like just kind of clicked with you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I from the get go, like, because I said I was very interested in making things normal in my world a little bit. I was setting a standard that was just so unrealistic. The standard, I suppose I was trying to reach the what I was trying to strive for was extremely unhealthy, because I was really just interested in playing as well as I could, and I discovered pretty early on some of the shrapnel label groups. Yngwie was one of the guys I first heard that. Like, oh yeah.
Like technique, you mean? Like trying to play as fast and as like...
No, not as fast. Just to sound like you had a command on the instrument and a precision and a... I mean, you listen... I don't care what anybody says. That first Yngwie record is still some of the finest recorded guitar playing. I defy some people anyone to show me better. Like truly. Especially an 18-year-old kid who was doing that in Sweden. Yeah. Before anybody was doing it. Hearing someone like that, hearing his story and hearing what that sort of self-isolation and that he was very singular at the time. He launched a billion other guitar players' careers, of course. I was just really interested in proficiency and there's players you can play. I mean, anybody can play fast. That's not hard. It's playing. There's a level of intent. Yeah. And when you play something aggressive or fast or with the sort of a burst of energy or speed, it can't just be, kind of a scrambled mess. It has to have
precision, the clean.
Yeah, it has to have intent, and it has to have just a beauty to it. And I heard poetry in his playing. I heard music. I heard. That first one, specifically Rising Force, that's a devastating record as a 15-year-old to hear. Yeah. When all you've heard what was on the radio at the time. Yeah. What was on the radio at the time there was no solos. I started playing guitar in 2000. It was when nu metal had just started. Limp Bizkit roamed the world. Yeah, there was no guitar solos, and I didn't like any of that music. It just didn't. I wasn't angry. It didn't connect to me. I didn't like the downtune stuff. I didn't like the fashion. So I just heard somebody who was treating the instrument like a classical instrument almost. Yeah, and that spoke to me because it was, oh wow, there's something here that
kind of getting like his emotion out through what he's playing onto
and I mean, all these other guys were playing with emotion, obviously, but there was just something that just appealed to me. Yeah. And from there, it just was like, okay, well, if you discover one of them, it unlocks all of them. Yeah. So I was ravenous. I had a voracious appetite for guitar music, and you start to learn who's a true artist and who's just kind of like just coattailing, you start to figure, and then, I got into like, it's like, who's this Stevie Ray Vaughan guy? What's everyone talking about here? And, I the first thing I heard from him was I bought there's a double live record he did at Montreux. And it's really cool because the first, if you've seen it, the first DVD or album or CD, whatever, is because it was essentially a folk festival at the time, the Montreux Festival.
It's a jazz festival.
Yeah, folk and jazz at the time. And he gets booed.
Oh, really?
He goes up and he's up there playing Hideaway, Freddie King song. He's up there and they're booing him. He's smoking a cigarette. He was so cool. He's up there and he had a hat like this too, actually. He's up there playing his Strat. He's smoking a cigarette. And they're booing him and he's just like, and they leave. Okay, whatever. He comes back on the second disc. And you hear Tommy Shannon goes, Chris Layton goes, I think he says 3 years ago tomorrow. Anyway, it's like they're back and they start off with Scuttlebutton or something, and everyone's just going crazy for him. And there was just something about like, oh, that guy's a true artist. Like he was here, he did his thing. They let him know they didn't like it. Yeah. But he kept doing what he did, and he came back and look at that. So a guy like that. I looked at a guy like Eddie Van Halen, who you listen to those first couple records. I mean, he's like inventing. Yeah. He's boiling his guitar strings so they stay in tune. Yeah. He's carving shit out in his instrument. He's blowing amps up. He's an inventor in a lot of ways,
totally.
you know.
He's an innovator. Of
so
guitar.
I look at them like, okay, that's another one of these guys. That's kind of the true artist. And then the other guy that I was absolutely in love with was Jeff Beck, specifically post throw the pick in the garbage Jeff Beck, because what I love about him in that era too. Have you seen the Live at Ronnie Scott's?
I think I've seen some parts.
You should watch it top to bottom. I used to watch it. I watched it almost every day for a whole year. I was obsessed with it. And the thing I loved about it, and this is again that kind of true artist thing, is he would come out and he just baby powder, cuts his hands.
Yeah.
Picks his guitar up. There's no treble. It turns all the treble down. He's got a Marshall amp, and he's just like you don't know if he ever practiced.
Yeah.
You have no clue. And you hear him play and you're like, okay, he's making it sound, the guitar sounds like a harmonica now.
Yeah.
It sounds like a horn. It sounds like an engine revving. And he's playing with Vinnie Colaiuta, one of the Zappa pedigree, and he's playing with just these incredible jazz musicians, but he's just kind of like a blues rock guy.
Yeah.
Maybe he was working on a big block engine in the dressing room. I don't know. He just had this thing, so all these guys, to me, I guess the theme was they had this level of street in them where they just, maybe it wasn't always right.
Yeah, they're kind of doing their own version of what has already been done before in a way, but making it interesting, making it cool, and going against what might be the rules.
Yeah, there's a level of fire breathing with their playing. And then the guy that tied it all together though, there was one guy that kind of took all the guitar playing, which I like, but I didn't. The truth of it is, and this is maybe going to get me in trouble, is I actually don't like a lot of the writing from these players. I thought they were all great players, but the music, I would listen to the music and I was like, okay, doesn't really speak to me on that level. However, the guy I got into that really made me go, I want to do that, was Pat Metheny.
Okay, yeah.
So when I heard Pat Metheny, speaking of now, I think that was 2002 that record came out. I might have been, 15 or 16 when I heard that record. I remember hearing the song that opens the record is called As It Is. It's just a very simple melody, but the way the evolution of the song, now hearing a guy who's not just using harmony and pitch and everything, but he's using dynamics.
Yeah.
And he's using this guy could arrange. I mean, Pat has 30 Grammys or something. It's you listen to this guy arrange a melody, or you listen to how he leads a band, or how he builds a piece of music.
Yeah.
And, they all have long, extended guitar solos over extremely difficult chord changes, but that wasn't necessarily what I cared about. I was just obsessed with, here's the most amazing guitar player, but he's just playing a simple melody.
Yeah.
And it's just making me cry. Why is that?
It's almost like the story of the song.
It's the story of the song. Yeah. There's a full arc to this piece of music. I don't like everything he does, like any artist.
Yeah,
there's ups and downs, but
totally.
As a whole, I remember thinking, I want to do that.
Yeah,
and that's then I got into playing, because I don't know him or anything. I don't know that much about him. I've kind of kept him at arm's length. I do think, from what I've heard, he writes a lot of his music on piano, which is why I started doing that too.
Okay,
real young. Because I realized I have all this technique, but I'm not saying anything.
It's such a different way to write a song on a piano than it is on a guitar.
Absolutely.
It obviously the way you phrase certain melodies and the way you play chords, because with a guitar, usually you're doing root, fifth, third kind of thing, or seventh on top of that. With the piano, obviously the basic is regular triad, root, third, fifth, and then you're kind of building on top of that.
Yeah,
so it is a completely different way.
It's a completely different animal. The biggest thing for me was you pull out you pull out your blues licks. You can't play, all that shit. At least I can't. It's gone. So now, okay, well,
you can't bend. Unless you've got a pitch wheel.
Yeah, most rock guitar is dragging one foot a little bit behind in the blues. It just is what it is. It sounds good. It's comfortable. We grew up listening to it. It is what it is. Yeah. But when you sit at the piano, even if you don't know theory, you're talking about triads. Even if you don't know that stuff, and you start maybe experimenting or not knowing theory and the mystery of how do I get these black keys to work?
Yeah.
There's something so interesting. There's something a little bit mystical, and then when you start kind of making headway with it,
you start working it out, you feel
it's really cool. Yeah, it just changes everything. So yeah, that's kind of what maybe got me in. Was originally it was just proficient guitar playing, played by guys I could tell had a distinct musical DNA, and seemingly launched, like Yngwie, he had his whole school that he launched, and Eddie, I mean, everybody.
Yeah.
Stevie Ray, Hendrix, all this stuff, like, going back to some of that stuff. It was more just like hearing, I suppose, or seeing a photograph of somebody's soul.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
And that to me is what still sustains me. I don't follow a lot of the modern guitar scene just because you are what you eat. I don't want to be listening and consuming guitar all the time. But there's a few guys that I see what they do and I hear what they do, and it makes me go like, I understand you a little bit, because even if I don't know them, I feel like I understand them because I know what it has taken to develop a bit of that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's very, it's a whole thing. I don't know. It's ridiculous. It's insane.
Yeah, there's a lot of guitar-based music out there. But the one thing I think with guitar is, I mean, something that I think most guitarists kind of almost dream about when they're a kid and they start playing guitar is like, oh, I wish I had my own signature guitar. Right, and you've got that.
Was that something you wanted?
Oh yeah, I would love my own signature guitar.
Yeah?
It'd be so cool just to get to like sit down with a brand, whoever, and just kind of design something that is actually made for myself. I mean, so with this, obviously you've got your Nick Johnston Schecters.
Yes.
Obviously you got the S style and the T styles here, but there. So I mean, can you tell me a little bit about how you even got into, like, how did this come about?
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting. Like, you talking about, I had no interest in a signature model. I had no. I didn't feel like I had anything to offer the guitar.
I just feel like a lot of guitarists almost dream of that. It's like, I get to build my own guitar.
Yeah, no,
I guess a lot of people do because they buy like parts and they make.
Yeah, you can make a parts cast. I never had that dream just because I didn't think I would have anything to say. And who was I to improve on what had already been perfected back by Leo Fender, right?
Yeah.
I was playing Fender guitars for a long time, and I was at a point in my career, I suppose, but 2014, I put a few records in. I just done an album called Atomic Mind, and I had some real cool musicians play on it. There's a band from the UK called the Aristocrats, Guthrie's band essentially, and I had them as my rhythm section on that record, which was like, okay. So I wanted to try and venture out into maybe, building a little bit of a following and maybe start working with a brand. I had some friends that were working with brands and stuff, and I really didn't know much about that. And I had befriended a couple Schecter artists just from the internet and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
One guy that I became real close with pretty quickly was Keith Merrow, who's also a Schecter artist. And he asked me, who you working with? I was like, I'm working with anybody. He goes, man, it'd be really cool. You should check out Schecter, because he had just had his I guess he started, it'll be 10 years or so this year, next year with his model.
Yeah.
So he was doing well with them, and he said, you should think about Schecter. And I didn't know anything about them other than they were like the new metal brand. Papa Roach,
kind of.
Cold Chamber, Powerman 5000, all that stuff.
Yeah. It's where you see it a lot, especially in those.
Yeah. I just didn't understand that music, so it didn't appeal to me. So I got in touch with Schecter, and they sent me a guitar. And like I said, I'd only known them as the brand that did the Hellraiser and the Omen and the Damien and the the
Sinister Gates,
anti-religious names of shit.
Yeah.
Sinister Gates, of course. Yeah. Anyway, they sent me a guitar. It was based off of what they used to do, and when they were just a Sunset Custom, they were doing custom shop guitars and parts replacements, and back when they were doing stuff for, which is where the Pete Townsend comes from. Yngwie used to play them at one point. Prince stuff made by Schecter, all that stuff. And, some of the builders, the pedigree, like Tom Anderson came from that school, John Suhr, James Tyler, all these guys were from Schecter, from this.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, there's a pretty cool, like, like I said, legacy or background on this brand. So I had the guitar, and it was just sitting in a case. It was a custom shop guitar. I didn't play it for a while because I was afraid of it, because I had a guitar I'd saved up for years to buy. It was a Fender custom shop guitar, and it was, at the time, it was a beautiful guitar. So they finally said either play it or send it back. And I was like, oh, that's very disrespectful of me. I should try this guitar. And it was by far the nicest guitar I'd ever played, bar none, no question. And I loved it so much. I was kind of raving about it to them. And there's a really interesting cast of characters over at Schecter in Sun Valley, California. It's a very small team. It's a small, huge company, small, big company, if that makes sense.
I think I've seen quite a few like YouTube videos and stuff. I think Rob Scallon did.
Yeah, I almost called him Rob Scallion.
Scallion, yeah.
He's not Rob Onion. He's Rob Scallon.
Yeah, I saw like Rob Scallon do like a few YouTube videos. Where they
Rob has the model with the cool little anchor inlay on it. That's a nice guitar. And the international sales rep, Ryan, who's here with me today, he's he's an anomaly in this industry.
Yeah.
Because he actually, as an international rep or salesman or head of the international sales, he actually goes internationally to these places and he meets with distributors and dealers. And I know that's very boring to those of you listening. However, it's very interesting because I was essentially invited to tag along as a clinician.
Yeah.
And that's not really a job anymore. It's not really a thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, he asked me to come with him. The first place I went was China. And I live in a country where it's either too cold, Canada, or it's too humid.
Yeah.
And the guitar has to thrive in that environment, or else, you're going to be...
You can be setting it up all the time.
Yeah, you're going to have fret ends poking you, cutting your hands. And I've had like that F guitar, the big F guitar I had, even though it was a beautiful instrument, it had a lot of problems. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I paid for this? I was very frustrated with that guitar.
Yeah, especially when you're spending like almost like $3,000.
Too much.
Right?
Too much for that. It's psychotic. Anyway, so I get the guitar, and he took me out on the road, and I did a clinic tour across Asia and Southeast Asia, and I didn't change the strings. I didn't have to barely retune it. I checked the guitar in a gig bag. Under the plane.
Yeah.
I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I do that.
Yeah.
I'm that guy.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's always fine. So I get home with that first guitar. It was just the black one they sent me, and I was like, this is amazing. I love it. And they said, we want to relaunch the custom shop because they really hadn't done much with it in a while. And we kind of want to relaunch it with you as the face of it, in a sense.
And you just
not
like,
those
whoa.
words. Well, yeah. At first, I didn't understand what that. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. My career, Schecter has always been very successful, but the custom shop, nobody really was talking about it. It was kind of down here, and my career was down here, and it just was like the perfect timing to relaunch. And then they said, "Do you want to do a signature model?" And I was like, "I'm a nobody." So, I mean, yeah, of course, but I don't understand why. And we just kind of took what I liked about it, and I just added a couple things here and there. And
if you can tell me what is something that you changed or
well, the thing about it was I wanted something that looked
traditional,
traditional, but I wanted something that looked like it would stand out, but not to a point where it would stand out enough to where it screamed me. So I remember being in the custom shop, and I saw the neck that I use on all my custom shop models. The neck was hanging up. I was like, wow, that's really cool. What is that? And the Shigeki, the builder there, he custom shop, he goes, it's a Wenge neck with an ebony fingerboard and these cool brass inlays. He just hammered them in there. And I took it, and I was like, wow, it's a real nice porous neck. You could feel the wood grain. And we were just putting bodies up against it. I remember putting like a white one. It looks really good. And green one, or blue one, red one, whatever. And I found an old body, and it was like in a box, like from the 90s, and we put it up to it. It's back when Schecter still did the input jack on the front of it.
Coming out.
It's crazy. And I remember being in the room with the VP, Mark, Ryan, Shigeki, and a couple other guys, and we just kind of matched it up, and everyone was like, holy and you look at that guitar, and it still is very visually striking. It's still very unique looking. So I wanted something that looked cool, more so for me, because I wanted to be inspired by the instrument. I don't really hear the difference in tone woods. Maybe I'm missing frequencies that everybody else seems to have. I don't hear the difference. I wanted something that looked cool and felt cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. You want it to feel.
God, yeah, like, absolutely. And I didn't want my name on it. Like, I don't want my name on it. There's a little inlay on the back, and etching. I don't.
But that's good though, because it's subtle. Because there's times where like I see signature guitars by people, and it's got like that's like a big signature on it, and you can clearly tell it's their guitar.
Yeah, and
it's like that's cool and all, but I want it to be me. Like,
that's right. Yeah, like I suppose there are a couple examples that I'm not going to mention them, but I looked at them. I'm just like, that's
too much.
Yeah,
but
and just some of the body shapes, I'm like, I don't understand why you would do it. It's not even comfortable. It's like, it looks cool. Maybe it's memorable, but there's no functionality to it.
Yeah.
So I want it to still be functionality. I like, we were talking about it before. I love the inlay.
The inlay's amazing.
I love the exposed truss wheel. I love getting rid of one of the tone knobs.
That's the one thing I hate about. I say hate. I don't really like too much about Stratocasters is the 3. It's like that. It's too close to the. It's
very
bridge.
close.
It's like I can't like quickly do what I need to do because it's just in the way.
I had gotten used to it because I played it my whole life, but I was like, there's got to be there's another way.
Yeah.
So I just pulled it, and most people don't even use the tone knobs.
No.
Most people don't even know they're there.
On full.
Yeah.
Done.
So and this, because there is just the master now, I tend to use it more because it's a little bit more like the engine room of the guitar. I wanted that ebony fingerboard. I wanted that Wenge neck. I wanted to just have a guitar that was gonna perform on the road.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too heavy. Yeah,
that's what it's all about, really.
Exactly,
it's like you can go out every single night on your tours on stage, and it's going to work, and they're always going to.
And it looks cool.
They look great. I mean, I love the colors of them as well. I mean,
yeah, that was what was fun. Is I wanted old car colors or kind of like ice cream colors.
I was going to say they kind of like influenced by those kind of old style kind of car.
Yeah, old. My dad's really into old cars and stuff, so I would always I was around that shit all the time, and then I remember seeing like that first one. It was like that mint green kind of look.
Yeah, I love the names you give them as well.
Yeah,
it's a bit different.
The naming,
you get a bit creative.
The naming
with the
thing, just it's some of them I wanted to be a little bit more obnoxious, but they were too over the top. But
you get a bit like crazy with it and call it like I don't know, like house music color or like purple dragon.
I mean that's we're going too far at that point, but
that's what I would do if it was up to me. Some crazy names.
So again, it's just the guitar at this point, it kind of speaks for itself, and that it's in its I think 8th year now, and it hasn't really changed.
Yeah, I mean they're beautiful guitars, and I love obviously you've got the PTs.
Yeah, which same kind of story.
I love those style of guitars. Like for me, like that's usually my kind of thing. I mean, just a question, because obviously you've got the classic styles here. Would there ever be any kind of thought of, obviously maybe because you don't really play them too much, but would there ever be any thought of like a little offset?
Well, we've talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, we've talked about it. I always ultimately decided no. We talked about like doing a baritone guitar. We talked all sorts of stuff. I don't.
Not really into it.
No,
it's not really.
I just don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no point putting your name.
It would just be very like.
It would be nice.
It would be cool. There's just a level of like some capitalism in that I don't like. I'm just trying to sell it for the sake of it. And it's disingenuous.
Yeah, you still want it to be your thing.
Like I want to still play it. I want people to know that it's an instrument that I'm not just trying to capitalize on the success of this one. It's like the reason why I play this guitar is because it's what I play.
This podcast is sponsored by Shure Microphones. Do you want your podcast to sound this good? Well, then you should check out the iconic Shure Microphones. They have these microphones like the SM7B, the SM58, the SM57. But wait, there's more. They also have in-ears, headphones, and wireless system. There's everything you could possibly think of for streamers, podcasters, and musicians. So check the link in the description so you can see the full range of Shure products from Gear4music. Back to the podcast. Finally, what we're going to do is with these guitars that you can see here in front of us, we're actually going to get Nick to sign them. And then on the Gear4music website, you can actually go ahead and you will be able to purchase these guitars from us. So it'll be double signed by Nick.
Double signed.
Because
of course.
It's already got your signature on
there.
Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and just get signed to them.
All right, let's do it.
I'll try and ask you a couple of questions at the same time. So first of all, obviously there's tons of amazing guitar artists out there at the moment. What is one that really stands out to you currently that you almost take a little bit of inspiration from yourself?
Oh, that's easy. That's David Maximicic. David, I love you to death, my friend. He's extraordinarily gifted. Not just as a player, but as a composer, as an arranger, as a instrumentalist, as a human being, and I've had many. I did some touring with him years ago, and we just bonded so beautifully. Me and David. He put a new record out. He finished his long standing Below series, Below 4, which is an absolute masterpiece. And
Gotta think about where you're going to sign that one. You're going to sign it on the body?
Easy peasy.
Nice.
And he's amazing. He's unbelievable. In terms of just pure guitar playing, I would say one of my favorites is Mark Lettieri. I think Mark is incredible. Oh, there we go.
I mean, there's tons out there.
There's so many. There's just so many. It's just, anybody that is also doing it with great music is just, it's worth listening to. Yeah, I mean, just go on Instagram now, I guess.
So
it seems to be where everybody's really thriving. There's a cool Australian guitar player, James Norbert Ivani. He does some really interesting progressive stuff. I like him a lot. He's a talented guy. And I like James too. He always sends me his new stuff to check out, and it's always a treat, always a pleasure. I just did a camp with a couple great guitar players too, with Tom Quayle and Jack Gardner and Andy Timmons. Jack and Tom, I'm not sure. Obviously, Andy's been around forever. He's a legend, but I don't need to say much about him. He's basically as good as it gets. But seeing Jack and Tom do their thing, that was pretty incredible, pretty inspiring. And they're a couple of your fellow countrymen too, I believe. But yeah, man, it's good. Guitar's in good hands these days. There's a lot of amazing. There's
a lot of amazing bands out there.
And I mean, you know what? I don't even know the half of it. I don't know. I'm not the guy to ask, I guess.
But I mean, thank you so much.
Oh,
obviously,
yeah,
like I said, these have been signed by Nick himself, as you just saw. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah. And sorry if I rambled too much.
No, honestly, it was great talking to you. So thank you so much. If you would like to, obviously, like, comment, and subscribe down below. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thanks, guys. Bye.